Kaitlin Collins was praised as CNN's rising star until a live broadcast exposed everything. One segment, one guest, one career-ending moment. What happened next shocked the entire newsroom. If you're ready to hear this powerful story, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from. The newsroom was calm, almost too calm. Screens flickered softly in the dim light. Phones buzzed here and there, but no one paid much attention. Inside her office, Kaitlin Collins sat at the edge of her chair, flipping through notes for tonight's big segment. The floor manager had called it a career-defining moment. Producers said this interview would silence critics for good. Kaitlin had heard it all before, but this time it felt different. Her makeup was done. Her blazer was crisp. The camera crew was already setting up. Everyone was moving like they were building something historic. She took a slow breath and stared at the script in front of her. Every word had been double-checked. Every question rehearsed. It was not just another interview. This one would go viral. That was the plan. Across the city, in a quiet apartment, a man stared at his screen. He had been waiting for the right moment. Tonight was perfect. He clicked compose on a new email. The subject line was short but heavy. Confidential, urgent, Kaitlin Collins. His hands hovered over the keyboard. Then he started typing fast, almost angry. Attachments loaded. Screenshots. Recordings. A document that could change everything. Back at CNN, Kaitlin smoothed her hair, completely unaware of what had just been sent. The countdown was about to begin. She had no idea the storm had already started. The fall was not coming later. It had already begun. The meeting room smelled like burnt coffee and stale ambition. Chairs scraped across the polished floor as executives shuffled into place, papers in hand, eyes locked on the giant screen at the front. The mood was not light, but it was focused. CNN had taken too many hits lately. Segments had backfired. Ratings were slipping. Trust had become a problem. Something had to change. The man at the head of the table stood up and cleared his throat. We need a win. Not just a small one. A statement. His voice was steady, but underneath it was pressure. Real pressure. We go big, we go bold, and we do it live. A producer leaned forward, tapping his pen on the table. We pull in someone from the other side. Someone loud. Someone high profile. We frame it as fair, but we hit hard. Make him sweat. Another voice chimed in, sharper this time. Kaitlin is ready. She has the edge. The confidence. She will not blink. Heads nodded. Everyone agreed. Kaitlin Collins would lead the charge. She would take the guest apart, piece by piece. It would be smart, precise. The facts would be loaded. The clips would trend. This segment will set the tone. Someone added, we will own the cycle. No more playing defense. A final decision was made. The name was chosen. A sitting senator with MAGA ties. Outspoken. Not afraid of a fight. That was exactly what they wanted. The team scattered with urgency. Schedules updated. Lighting checked. Questions revised. This was going to be their moment. A masterclass in control. But while they prepared their ambush, none of them noticed a flaw in their plan. The guest had seen this coming. And he was getting ready, too. The lights inside the studio burned bright. The countdown flashed on the screen. 3, 2, 1. And then they were live. Kaitlin Collins sat tall at the desk, her hands folded neatly, her eyes sharp. The camera zoomed in, catching every detail of her calm expression. Her voice cut through the silence with precision. Tonight, she said slowly, letting the words settle, we exposed the dark underbelly of a growing scandal, one that could shake the core of government trust. Behind her, a large screen lit up with a headline, Leaked Documents, Ethics Under Fire. She continued, a whistleblower has stepped forward with documents suggesting serious misconduct involving high-ranking officials. We have reviewed the contents. What we found raises real questions about leadership, honesty, and accountability. Her tone was firm. This was her moment. Across from her sat the guest, a well-known conservative senator with a reputation for bold talk. But tonight, his eyes darted briefly toward the monitor, then back to Kaitlin. He adjusted his jacket, cleared his throat. She noticed. Senator, she said, turning to him. Before we dive in, have you seen these documents? He gave a half smile. I have seen what your team sent over. Her eyebrow lifted. Then you understand the seriousness of what we are about to discuss. He nodded slowly. Kaitlin believed she had him exactly where she wanted. The pressure was building. Her questions were ready. The clips were lined up. But while she prepared to expose him, he was preparing too. Just not in the way she expected. The senator leaned back in his chair, calm and steady, as Kaitlin fired off her next question. She was confident, until he reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick folder. Without a word, he placed it on the desk between them. Cameras zoomed in. Her eyes followed his hands, unsure of what was coming next. I figured this might happen, he said, flipping the folder open. So I brought something that your producers seem to have missed. He pulled out a printed email chain. Then a copy of the full whistleblower memo, unredacted. Finally, a flash drive. This, he said, holding it up, is the full video from the original source. Not edited, not clipped. The raw footage. Your story leaves out some very important parts. Kaitlin blinked. Her fingers tapped the desk, just once. She glanced off camera, waiting for direction, but nothing came. The senator leaned in slightly. Did your team even read this? Or were you too busy cutting clips that fit the headline? She opened her mouth, but said nothing. Her next question, written neatly on the card in front of her, no longer made sense. He kept going. The timeline your report shows? False. The claims? Taken out of context. And the source you keep quoting? He tapped the memo. He has already admitted under oath that key parts were added after the fact. The studio was silent. Phones in the control room lit up like a firestorm. Twitter was already on it. Screenshots of the folder. Clips of Kaitlin caught off guard. Hashtags like FactCheckCNN and Kaitlin Cornered shot up the trending list. This was not just a rebuttal. It was a counterpunch. And Kaitlin, she had no defense. Inside the control room, red lights blinked across every screen. Producers were whispering into headsets, eyes wide, fingers shaking. One of them leaned over and whispered, "We are trending, but not how we want it." On the studio monitors, Kaitlin kept her posture, but something was off. Her voice was still strong, but the energy had shifted. Behind the scenes, Twitter was catching fire. Hashtag CNN fake news shot up the charts. Then came hashtag Kaitlin exposed. Within minutes, hashtag media lies followed. Clips of the senator holding up documents were everywhere. Screenshots of Kaitlin's frozen face had already become memes. But then it got worse. Project Veritas released a new video. The title hit hard. Caught on tape, CNN inside the machine. In it, a CNN producer sat at a restaurant, unaware he was being recorded. He leaned in close to the hidden camera and said it clearly. "We push stories for clicks, not truth." He laughed. The drama sells. Accuracy. That comes later. The video played clips of the producer naming Kaitlin directly. She knows the game. She knows what gets numbers. The screen went black for a second. Then came the audio. Unedited. Kaitlin's voice off-air, mocking her guest. "He's going to sink himself if I just let him talk long enough. Watch." The Veritas narrator spoke next. Calm. Cold. She is not just biased. She is corrupt. Social media went wild. The leaked video had hit every major platform within 15 minutes. Kaitlin's team saw the damage spreading in real time. Hashtags kept climbing. Screens were refreshing nonstop. And in the middle of it all, Kaitlin kept talking on air, unaware that outside the studio, her credibility was falling apart with every passing second. If this story is touching your heart right now, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below. Kaitlin shifted in her chair. Her voice, once calm and steady, now carried a slight tremble. She glanced down at her notes, then back at the guest. The questions no longer fit. The answers she had planned for were gone. "I think we need to be clear," she said, forcing a smile. "This new information, it does not erase the concerns raised by." The senator raised a hand and calmly interrupted. "What concerns?" "The ones built on half-truths and missing context." He slid another paper across the desk. "This is the full transcript from the committee hearing your team quoted. The part you left out." He tapped the highlighted section. The witness admitted there was no direct evidence. Kaitlin opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came. Her eyes flicked toward the camera light. Still live. Still rolling. She tried again, this time faster. Senator, that does not change the fact that these issues need to be examined. He smiled, not moving. I agree. But not through selective reporting. Across social media, the moment was already being clipped, captioned, and shared. People were calling it a live unraveling. Words like meltdown and spiral were everywhere. Inside the studio, producers stayed silent. No one cut to commercial. No one whispered in her earpiece. She was on her own, and the guest knew it. He sat back, hands folded, watching her scramble for control that was no longer hers. The damage was not coming. It was already here. The mood inside the CNN war room was heavy. Screens showed live ratings climbing fast, but no one was celebrating. One executive stared at the numbers and muttered, "They are watching, but for the wrong reason." Phones were ringing, but not with praise. One producer read a message aloud from an anonymous staff member. "We are in free fall." Another whispered, "Sponsors are already backing away." The air was tense. No one knew what to say. A senior executive slammed a folder on the table. How did this happen? Who cleared that segment? No one answered. The room was filled with finger-pointing, whispering, and quiet panic. Emails started coming in from advertisers. Cold, polite, and clear. "We will be reviewing our relationship moving forward." In the hallway outside the studio, Kaitlin was walking fast, heels hitting the floor hard. She ignored everyone. A staffer tried to hand her a phone. She pushed it away. Her jaw was tight, her hands shaking. Back in the control room, someone finally said it out loud. "We lost control. We let it air without full checks. Now we are paying for it." Kaitlin reached the back exit. Cameras caught a final glimpse as she pulled off her mic and pushed through the door. No words. No goodbye. Inside, the war room sat in silence. The big interview meant to restore trust had done the opposite. The headlines were already writing themselves, and CNN had no way to stop them. Kaitlin sat alone in her dressing room, still in full makeup, the lights around her mirror casting a soft glow. Her phone buzzed again. She had ignored it the first few times, but this time she picked it up. The number was blocked. She answered without saying anything. A voice on the other end was direct. No emotion. "You are being placed on temporary suspension pending internal review." Kaitlin blinked, frozen. She did not respond. "We will release a statement. You are advised not to speak to the press." The call ended. She stared at the screen for a moment, then slowly set the phone down on the table. Her hands were cold. "They are using me as the fall guy," she whispered to herself, her voice cracking. An email notification appeared on her laptop. Subject line, "Whistleblower statement urgent." She clicked. The message was short. A CNN staff member had confirmed that producers were warned about the segment. The documents had gaps. The guest's claims were likely true. But the story ran anyway. She leaned back in her chair, eyes fixed on the screen. The video replay of the interview began to loop. Her voice filled the room, asking the first question. Then came the guest's response. The folder. The proof. Her pause. Her silence. She watched herself get dismantled in slow motion. Her reflection stared back from the mirror, composed, polished, confident. But none of it mattered now. The moment that was supposed to define her had done exactly that, just not in the way anyone planned. She reached out and hit pause. The screen froze on her own expression, caught between control and collapse. If this story touched you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us, who was the unsung hero in your life?